I'm Elizabeth Westergaard, and here we go. I did 1220 WATX, which is a radio station out of the Toyota of Wallingford. So I'm Elizabeth Westergaard, as I said already. I'm going to GVSU in the fall for civil engineering, and it's in Allendale, Michigan. And then I'll be doing a second major inside of architectural engineering at a different school in the future. My site supervisor is Brian Smith. He's worked here before. He's done all of the Marin concerts that were held at the school. I've been working with Brian since I was 7 years old, so we've known each other for a very long time. So when we went through, it was great because I didn't feel like I was uncomfortable at any point in time when I was with him, and it was nice to be able to relax a little bit when I was meeting new people. So where did I intern? I did it at Toyota of Wallingford, and it was a little bit odd walking into a car dealership to work at a radio station. But when you walked in, there was NASCARs all over the walls, and my big boss, Steve, actually works for NASCAR. He's run most of the Daytona 500s before and after shows. And he's got pace cars in his parking lot and monster trucks outside, which I got to drive one. We have Sarah Lee, which is the work dog. She just follows him around all day. Highlight of my day, honestly. And then we have Dill Pickles. So our antenna is out of Nadu Farm. It's a goat farm inside of Hamden, Connecticut. And they just recently gave birth to a bunch of baby goats, and he was the runt. So every single week, Dill Pickles would come in, and we would get to watch him grow. Everybody else that worked at the radio station, we have Steve up top, Clark, Brian, Holly, and then there was another person who did our weather, Mary Lee. These are all very great people. They became my family while I was there. Why did I choose this site? I chose it mostly because I've done a little bit of radio before. Brian used to work at Quinnipiac University as their radio station host, and I used to go in there and intern sometimes and work with him and volunteer. So when I heard that he was starting a new project, I was like, hey, I could do that. I know a little bit. Let me help you out a little bit. It also helps that I knew Brian. He's like a father figure to me in a kind of sense and way. He takes care of me whenever I need him to, and he's a very supportive person. My expectations prior to starting this internship were a little bit iffy and offy because I knew what I was walking into, but I also didn't at all. I knew it was inside of a radio station, and I knew that it was inside of a car dealership, but I didn't know any of the people there, didn't know who I was working with, and I didn't know what kind of social environment it was going to be because Quinnipiac was a very closed-off radio station. There was no ins and outs, people coming in. This one, it was complete open doors. We had the mayor of Hamden come in, the mayor of Wallingford. We had goat farmers, we had animal clinic people, we had any kind of entertainment you could think of from A to Z coming in throughout the day. So my accomplishments were getting to learn mostly how the radio board works and how the background and the economy of it works. We learned mostly about sales and pitching for the most part because we were starting off. The radio station's been in the works for about a year and a half, and they only have a preview license, so they only have something that can only go in a certain distance around the state, and it's an AM signal. And it was very hard to be able to work with the person who was the owner of the signal and the owner of the radio station, trying to merge those two together. So my accomplishments were probably working with everybody in meetings, working hard to get everyone to get along. Sometimes it was hard. It was a hard work environment. There's people who didn't like each other. There's people who loved each other, but they didn't have the same viewpoint, and sometimes it's hard to work around that. I also was in charge of creating a 500-page master list of songs that needed to be added to the radio station. So I was given handwritten pieces of paper that I had to put into a spreadsheet and then highlight on a giant long master list. It took me a while, but it was all right. After that, we had what were my responsibilities. We have the master list, but I was also in charge of putting together the weather in the morning, finding news and topics to talk on air. Something that they did every single day was food news. My favorite one, personally, was when we did Dairy Queen getting rid of their cherry dip. It was pretty important, okay? Then we also found out that last year somebody stole about, I think it was like a $40,000 Dairy Queen spoon, and they found it inside of a middle school parking lot. So we did that, and then always having a smile on, coming in, making sure everyone's happy when they come into the radio station. We wanted to set a good example for all of our visitors because we did have quite a few of them. But I also represented them in public, so I went on about 4 to 5 different adventures, I would call them. One was when we went to the Bar Association of Milford. They were giving Brian an award, and I didn't know anybody. I felt like a deer in headlights. I was like, I am this little high schooler, and these are a bunch of people who are lawyers, and here I am. This is my boss. Have fun. So I sat there and I ate food for free. And then I went went to a golf course where I had to fix a golf cart at the 11th hole, pet a bunch of dogs, and then announce awards at the end of the ceremony. So then there was challenges in my internship, and that's, of course, trying to figure out the social scene of what I'm working with, because I've done a lot of social work before, but walking in, having a different respect for the people that I'm working with. I don't have a role there. I'm the intern. That was very hard for me to grasp in the beginning, but I just kept quiet. I kept low, being sure that my place inside of the radio station was to have a smile on, do my work, and then hopefully make friends and family along the way. I would also say that communication and clear instructions was a little bit hard, because I would have my internship site supervisor, which was lovely, and he would tell me stuff to do, but then all of the stuff I had to do was in correspondence with all of the others people's things that I had to do. So when I was making my master list, I was told to do a certain thing, and then someone wanted something else, and somebody wanted something else, and so I couldn't just do my job. I had to go through 4 lines of defense to try and figure out how to do my job. Some skills that I did learn was I learned that schools made me only be able to work with background noise. I cannot work in silence. Or when I'm reading, I can read perfectly fine in silence, because that's what I'm used to. You go into English class, it's silent. When you go into a normal class and you're supposed to do work, there's always stuff going on. So I was in many Starbucks, many Barnes & Nobles, many Dunkin' Donuts, sitting there doing my work. Another thing is I learned how to run proper programs, and we currently have an old system named Rivendell, and we're getting rid of that. But being able to put in, delete, move, copy all of the stuff that needs to be put onto the air, moving it from manual to automatic, being able to elaborate on the air what's going on, why there's a gap inside of something, when there's a missing part, because it is a working on radio station. Nothing's going to be perfect. We're changing things, throwing it in and out. Another thing I learned was how to answer a phone pretty well. People would call. We had one guy who would come in. He'd call every single day. I couldn't tell you what his name is. I honestly don't remember. But he would call, and he would be like, "Hi, I know you guys are Mets fans, but, like, the Yankees are better." And then he would just hang up. So that was always fun. It was always happy and entertaining to be there. And we always had lunch with each other. But we didn't have lunch with just the radio department. We had lunch with sales. We had lunch with the people who were running business, the people who were downstairs running the floor. And it was great just to be able to have a very open work environment. You had many different people always smiling, having fun together. This is going to help me with my future plans, because I'm going to be a civil engineer, and the school that I'm going to has a program where for some semesters you don't go to school at all, and instead you get a job at a local engineering firm. And engineering firms don't just have one type of engineering inside of them. They're mostly very broad, very big, and being able to work with so many different people from so many different points of view, but trying to get the same thing done was very important to me. And being able to do all of this through school was also very important to me. Though I didn't have a lot of work to do, I still came in, I still visited everybody, and I wanted to make sure that everything would be nice. My immediate future plans is I'm going to Grand Valley State University for civil engineering in the fall. I work at a summer camp. I've been working after school for the entirety of my internship for all of the school year. I've been an after-school counselor for the YMCA. I work over at Meadowside, love them all. And I'm looking into a good architecture school to get my double major in after I finish civil engineering over at Grand Valley State. Thank you. Any questions?
So I know you mentioned that obviously, like, working with different personalities is a really good skill to take away, right?
Yes.
But were there any other, like, standout skills, other things that you felt like you can translate into other things after you leave?
Being able to know my place inside of a meeting, because I might have a different role outside of a meeting. When I'm inside of a meeting, I have a voice, but it's not as prominent as you would think it would be. I wanted to be able to say stuff in some moments that I knew I couldn't, but I would be able to translate to my site supervisor, and he could be my voice, which was very important. Being able to go up to power and get my voice said through them instead of trying to say it through myself was also very helpful. Matt?
With some of the segments, you ran like food news and all that.
Yes.
Were there any other ones that you ran?
We really only did food news. We kind of like threw in some funky things once in a while, like whenever we would turn on the news and there'd be a really funny ad that was running. The thing about the radio station is it's fully glass paneled around, so people can come in and see it whenever they want. So we would always play the news on. There would be news on 4 different monitors, and whenever we'd come in, there would always be some kind of funny article that Pam would leave on the table for us to talk about. I feel like their main thing was food news. I kind of filled in for all the other radio hosts that weren't there. It was usually just me and Brian. But no, their main thing is food news. Or the afternoon adventures with Brian and Pam. Katie.
So was your station like primarily like music based, or was it more news story based?
It was primarily music, but their focus is trying to make it more like you're talking to people instead of you're just talking to the radio, or just listening to the radio. They're trying to make it so that you can hear people talking. It's actual people behind the board. There's communication going on. There's laughs. There's fun smiles. You can call in and request a song whenever you want. They wanted to make it mostly people-based. So it could be news if they want news. It could be music if they want music. And the music they played was mostly 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So.
I have a follow-up to that, actually.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So with that, being kind of a bit more of an open style of like a station, did you have to like contact anybody to get them to come on, like interview inquiries on seeing if they want to come on and like talk on air about like any community events or anything like that?
No, that really wasn't my job, but that was mostly Brian and Pam's job. I was just kind of there for the long haul. They would come in, I'd have to introduce myself, or Brian would introduce me. And there were some times where I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, I knew some of the people that came on, and it's like you just have to hide your own personal opinions a lot, but I didn't have to really invite anybody onto the air. Matt.
With the radio station, would you say it was kind of more like a talk show in the morning, and then kind of during the afternoon kind of transition to more music?
Okay, so it's a little bit different of what you're gonna hear Katie do it later, but, so usually radio stations are talk shows in the morning and music in the afternoon. Our station was trying to take a different approach from all of that and so my hours were always usually somewhere in the morning between 8 and 10, which was when we would leave to go to the radio station, and our hours started at 10 and they ended at 3. So we would talk anywhere live on the radio from 10 to 3, and it wouldn't just be like a designated segment of news or a designated segment of talking time. It would just be whenever we decide to put a cut in between two songs, or we have a funny comment about the song that's coming on, or it's the songwriter's birthday, or it was really that main part of the day where people are sitting at their office and they want to hear some liveliness that we would be on the air. Any other questions, Burns?
It sounds like you had a lot of varied experiences.
Yes.
From like going out and also being in a car dealership.
Yes.
And the whole thing. Did you have a part that you enjoyed the most of all your time there?
I would have to say I really enjoyed the golf tournament, which was not inside of the station, but it was also part of the station. So we would call in. We had a giant, big yellow box that would be able to bring anywhere, and it would just automatically send a signal to the radio station where we would be able to talk with everybody back at the station, Pam, Holly, Mary. And with that, it was just a fun day. You know, everyone was out. There was people from the car dealership playing inside of the golf tournament, so we were driving around, seeing how they were at their holes, how they were playing. It was a good bonding experience mostly too, because it happened towards the beginning of my internship, and I just enjoyed that being able to get so close with what my soon-to-be family was very early was very important to me, so that I came in, I settled down, I wasn't like I was nervous, and that experience just really let me show up and be me, essentially. All right.
Wonderful work.
Alright, well, this is about my internship. So, I'm Kayla. I'm currently a senior here, and I'm going to go to the University of Rhode Island in the fall for psychology. So, I interned a lot of places. My site supervisor's office was in Parsons, but we didn't spend a lot of time there. We went to a lot of different schools in the district. Orchard Hills, Orange Ave, JFK, Meadowside, Pumpkin Delight, Calf Pen, and East Shore. So we were all over the place, and I don't like driving, so that really sucked. But she ended up driving, like she offered to drive me because she gets paid for gas. I don't. So it was really nice that I didn't have to drive, and I enjoyed that. So this is my site supervisor. Her name was Courtney Carano. She's a board-certified behavior analyst. And I said this in my first sentence of my journal entries. She is the most girl boss I have ever met in my entire life. Like, I walked in on my first day, and I was waiting for her in the lobby of a school, and I didn't think it was her when she walked in. She walked in like 4-inch heels with like super long acrylics on, like, and just was like there to work and get it done. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was already very intimidated because, like, I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't even know she was her. And then she just walked up to me, and she's like, "You're Kayla, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "All right, let's go." And then we just started working, and I was like, "Great." Okay. Why did I choose this site? I'm not really sure what I want to do with my life. I just know I want to go into psychology, and I know someone did it last year, so it was suggested to me, and I was like, maybe I'll be interested in this, and if I'm not interested in being a BCBA, I could also see what it looks like to work in a school, and I thought that was really cool. And after doing research, I was like, that's kind of cool. I think I might actually enjoy what she's doing, so figured it could be a good experience. I had a lot of different expectations, and they went all over the place as we got closer. I knew I'd be doing a lot of observing and helping with activities when I could, but I also knew that I can't do as much as she can. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't have certifications she had. I was just kind of there to be there. I expected to be around many different children with many different reasons for her to be involved. Like, there were kids who had, like, extreme autism to kids who just would throw desks because he didn't eat his breakfast in the morning. So it was interesting to see the different types of people who need the same person to, like, help them, I guess. And I knew I'd be shadowing her, I guess, so there's that. My responsibilities were organizing and filing, which everyone said was going to be horrible. I liked it. I knew what I was doing. Everything got done. It was okay. I would add totals on the data sheets, that's an example of that. So I'd have to, like, count every thing that was the one she did. It would be like, circle this if a kid does this. So I'd have to count them and then do division. My calculator was my best friend for a little bit there. I had to be, like, present, like, fully, like, there in a classroom, not, like, just sitting there waiting for it to be over. Because, like, she wouldn't use my help as much, but some of the teachers would, which was really cool. And I'd help with that. I would ask questions and just, like, have a conversation with her if I need clarification on something or wanted to know more about something. And it was just to kind of learn about what she does, but learn about what the school team does too, because her job would be nothing without the school team, and the school team's job would be nothing without her. So I just wanted to, like, observe everything. I wanted to get an experience of everything. My accomplishments were that I figured out that I always say I don't like kids, but I think I want to work in a school, because it's a much different environment working in a school rather than, like, I work at an after-school program. It's so different, and I thought it was really cool. I got experience working within a field I want to go into, so I could kind of see, like, oh, maybe I don't like this. I could change it, but I did like it, so it worked out. I got to see children improve, even though I was only there for a month and a half, which was really nice because there were some kids I'd walk in and, like, these are kids who would, like, have to be put in holds. They were so bad, like, couldn't be trusted to, like, be on their own just sitting in a classroom. And then, like, they would have really good days. Like, my last day was so rewarding to see because there was one kid who every day she would get a call, oh, he's having a really rough morning or afternoon. And then we'd go there and he'd be, like, in tears. Like, they had to put him in a seclusion room because he was, like, trying to hurt himself and, like, hitting his head into a wall. And then, like, my last day, he was having, like, an amazing day and got all of his stuff done, was in a great mood. And it was just really rewarding to see that, you know, he's working on himself and he's getting better. I also observed many different situations and saw how they're correctly handled, because I've seen situations like this before in, like, my life, just being out and like see how they're handled then. But in a school, like they're handled so differently. Like you could have a kid throwing a fit, and in these classrooms, instead of being like, you just need to stop, go to the principal, they like sit with the kid and they're like, okay, we will sit with you until you're calm. When your body is calm, we will be able to leave and you can do your work. Like it was handled in such a more, I don't want to say a more better way, but a more better way than I've seen before. My challenges were I was afraid of getting involved too much or too little, because my first day I literally said like 3 words and that was it. I just sat there, I didn't know what to do. And then towards the end I was like, oh yeah, I can help, I could do these flashcards with this kid, I can organize all this, I can add up the totals on the data sheet. So I didn't really know what my place was for a while, but I figured it out, it was okay. I wasn't able to watch everything that was going on, so like, what she would have to do is she'd have to like put kids in hold sometimes, and I wasn't there for that because those get bad. Like I saw one and it was a lot. It was my 3rd day and I was turned off a little bit from it because I was like, that's scary. It was really scary to see, but it was nice because I wouldn't have to watch it after that, and it was okay. Towards the end of the days, it got a little bit repetitive, so I'd be writing my journal entries and I was like, okay, I went to Parsons again this morning. Okay, then we went to this school, and then this happened again, and then I went to this school, and same thing happened. But I really enjoyed it, even though it did get a little bit repetitive. And I wasn't able to help in every situation because I'm the type of person who just wants to help in every situation, but I can't. Like, I just had to sit there and watch. This was my biggest challenge. My experience was nothing like what it was for the girl who did it last year. And she even said that to me because we were walking to go to a school once and she was like, yeah, this year like all the children like are like misbehaving and like regressing and stuff like that. But last year they would spend like the time playing with the kids and it was like so much fun doing that. And I was like, I felt like I was doing it wrong, but it wasn't my fault. So I was like, this isn't like what it was. Like, the girl who did it last year could take a lot of pictures because it was just fun and games. Like, I couldn't do that because every day there was a kid having a breakdown. It wasn't like I got to just play games, so. I learned to be more organized and have time management, problem solving in tricky situations, and making those decisions really, really quick because if you have a kid throwing a table at another kid, you can't just be like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do this. No, you have to make a decision. I learned how to deal with people in difficult situations, whether it's an adult or a kid, because like they had parents who they had to meet with every week to say, okay, your kid is going to do X, Y, Z this week, because the parents made it really difficult for the kid to succeed, but they just wanted their kid to succeed. It was a really, really difficult situation to watch. I also learned to be patient in difficult situations, and I think that helps me in my life now with work and stuff like that, because there were times I would just want to like scream and just be like, can you just stop? But that's not how it works. You have to be like, okay, I know you're upset, but let's move on. Let's do this. Let's do this. It was, yeah. I made connections with people in the area I'm considering going into, which I think is really important. I'm going to put it on my resume, and hopefully they'll see that and be like, you're pretty cool. I want you to do this for me. It showed me something I might want to do that I thought I would absolutely not want to do at all in the littlest bit. And it gave me some experience doing something I want to end up doing. I'm going to continue to work at the after-school program I work at with Lizzie. Hi, Lizzie. After that, I'm going to do summer camp, except I got dragged into doing STEM. Don't really know how that happened. I'm going to attend URI for psychology, and I just want to get really involved and make a lot of connections and stuff like that. The end. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Yeah, Matt?
What was your favorite school to go to?
Okay. So, I liked Orange Ave because I got to do the most there. That teacher really utilized the fact that I was there and had nothing better to do. But I really liked the way Meadowside is, and I might be partial because like I work there too, but I just really like the environment there. I just know I really didn't like JFK because of their hallways, which is odd. I just really didn't like their hallways. Yes, Liz?
Running off of that, which one's your favorite parking?
I hate parking. It's a really difficult situation. I know Pumpkin had the worst parking ever, and I hit a curb on my first day. She was right behind me, and I was driving in, and I was like, oh, there's no parking here, so I went to back up and go out and then go down to like a bottom parking lot, and I hit a curb, and she watched me, and I was like, oh. I think Meadowside has the best parking, honestly.
So you mentioned that your supervisor is a total girl boss, but was there anything about like her technique or the approach that she took with the students she worked with that you feel like you might emulate in the future?
Yeah, she was just very patient with the kids, and like she would have kids like coming up to her and like hitting her as hard as they could and like leaving bruises on her, and she would just sit with this kid even though they're like hitting her, throwing things at her, threatening her, saying like vile things I wouldn't even say, like elementary schoolers saying things I wouldn't say. And she would just sit there and go, okay, I know you're upset, and I can't leave you until you are calm. I'll know you're calm when your body is calm and you are not screaming. And she would just keep saying that for like 20 to 25 minutes at a time, and I'm like, I would have just got up and left. Like, so.
I think on that same note, I know you were really nervous at the beginning of this, and so how would you describe like the nervousness you felt at the beginning, and then how far you've come until now?
In the beginning, like she barely talked to me in like emails. I didn't know what I was wearing. I didn't know where I was going. But the first like week, I was very nervous, very quiet, just kind of along for the ride. But then I spent more time with her, and we had actual conversations. We talked about the weather a lot, which was kind of awkward. But we had a lot of conversations, and I realized like, while she is like very get this done, she'll also sit down and like make sure you're comfortable. And like I think she could tell I was uncomfortable but wasn't gonna say anything. So she really worked to make sure I was comfortable and understood what was happening. So by the end, I was sad to go. I didn't think I'd be sad to go in the beginning. I was like, I'm just gonna get it done, it's gonna be fine, and then I'll never have to deal with it again. And then I left, and I was like, oh, I really actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. So, yes, Katie.
So now that you've like worked with all the elementary students and you've already done like some networking with your person and everything, do you see yourself, if you were to go into this field like for like your future, do you see yourself working with elementary students, or do you think you would prefer to work with middle schoolers?
So I would definitely either do elementary school or high school. I didn't go to a high school, but middle schoolers are rancid human beings. They are violent, they are mean, they are scary. I would never work in a middle school. But I would definitely say probably elementary schoolers.
Any questions for Kayla? All right, great work, Kayla.
Okay, so I did my senior internship at Connoisseur Media. So a little bit about me. My name is Katie Service, and I'm a senior here at Jonathan Law High School. I plan to attend the University of Connecticut with a major in journalism communications with a minor in political science. Why did I choose Connoisseur Media? So all these pictures are photos of me and one of my best friends, Marissa Laviano, who is also my co-host for our podcast, Ranking Roulette. And I would say that the journalism program here at Law has definitely opened me up to journalism. Coming into high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do for college. I had no idea where I would be in 4 years and how I would graduate and where I would even go to college. So I would definitely say that the classes that I started taking junior year helped me learn about the journalism industry and kind of see that I had a passion for writing and creating content. So I would definitely say that from being an honorary member of Eagle Eye News each morning and hosting with Marissa to my podcast Ranking Roulette and from the jury and just editing and putting everything together, I definitely found my passion through that as a junior. So where did I intern? I interned at Connoisseur Media at the Milford location. Ironically, it's like 2 minutes away from my house, so it was very convenient for me. And I was on WICC, which is 600 AM, 107.3 FM, and I absolutely loved it. It was an amazing experience, and I had the pleasure of working on Melissa in the Morning, which is the morning show for WICC, which would go from 5 a.m. till 10 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. But my hours were a little different. I came in around 5:45, 6 o'clock every morning, and I was there until about 10:15, 10:30, depending on the day. So who was I working with? I was working with Melissa Sheketoff, one of the coolest people I ever had the pleasure of meeting, and also the host of Melissa in the Morning. Chris Williams, who isn't pictured here, but he's also the producer for Melissa in the Morning, and also a very funny guy. And then my site supervisor was Alan Lamberti. He is the WPLR program director, 95.9 the Fox morning host, and the Weeby 108 afternoon host. So he does a lot. So my expectations going into my internship was I was ready to do a lot of audio editing, working on the WICC podcast, which can be seen here, doing a little bit of news research, kind of just seeing what's going on in the news today and researching a little bit each morning. I thought I was going to be answering the phones a lot, and coming from someone who doesn't like answering the phone, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to answer the phone a lot. So I was very nervous for that, but excited because I knew that it would be a good push for me, and it would get me out of my comfort zone. I also knew that I was going to be writing a lot of emails. Those that know me, I love writing emails, so I was actually very excited for that part. Right before I started my internship, I already started like drafting how I was going to do like my interview email and kind of like, here's who I am, I'm Katie the intern, and we want you to come on the show, and I just had too much fun with it. Some of my responsibilities include audio editing, contacting interviewees, and also going on the air. So with audio editing, we have a certain link, which is the skimmer, and we would pull down the audio after each hour. So if we recorded a segment at like 8:25, we'd have to wait until 9 o'clock, and then I would pull it down and edit it, depending on what part of the audio we did want to keep for the podcast, or if it's something where I was on air, and I just wanted to have it because it was me on the air. With contacting interviewees, I would research a lot about current news stories, things happening in the community, kind of just branching out and also looking at things happening with a lot of the youth, because the WICC age demographic is really, really old. So we're trying to bring the age range down a lot. So me being the teenager that I am, I was pulling things about things happening in high schools or things happening within our community, which I thought would be a great way to help bring in some younger groups of people. So things I would do would be writing emails and reaching out to them, seeing if they would be interested in coming on air and things like that. I also had the opportunity to go on air a handful of times. I got to report on articles that I either read about or news research that I conducted. A lot of the times it was Melissa and I talking about things that I read or something I came up across. There was one time we came across this flash food app, which is a way for people to get food at discounted prices because it's nearing its expiration or its sell-by date, which was a really cool thing to come on air for. She just asked me right in the middle of the traffic and weather going on, which is maybe a 6-minute period. And I was like, hey, you want to come on and just start talking about this? I was like, okay. So I went on and we just talked it out, and it was very conversational, which definitely made me feel more comfortable. And it wasn't as stressful because it's just you in one room talking to one other person. It doesn't seem like you're on air when you are on air, which was really cool. And I also ended up having Katie the intern on the wall. So to all the listeners, I became Katie the intern, so everyone kind of knew who I was, which was pretty cool. Some of my biggest accomplishments while working on Melissa in the Morning was becoming familiar with Adobe Audition, which is a platform I've never used before when it comes to editing audio. It took me a few tries to get used to it and kind of figure out the platform a little bit, but I ended up figuring it out no problem, and it wasn't really too difficult because I was editing audio a good amount of the time. I also learned how to pull audio from the skimmer, and I got to see how a morning show is organized. So a lot of thing with radio is, I'm going to give you a little secret, it's not always live going on. A lot of it is pre-recorded, which is something that you can see here. So this is a picture of one of the monitors that we have in the studio with us, and it'll show you there's a lot of different things that are already set up. So a lot of like the intros for like the traffic, or if we have a certain guest coming on and they have their own significant like sound that goes on before they come on air and talk, that would be set up here, and it would go through, and they had times to play it, and it'll tell you the amount of time. There's also timers on it and everything like that, which I thought was really interesting to learn and very cool to look at. Another big accomplishment of mine was Instagram Reels, and I'll get into that a little bit later. A few of my challenges and problems. This cubicle computer. I cannot stand this cubicle computer. I've only used it twice, and I will never use it again. We're in 2023 where Windows 11 is a thing. Why is this computer still running Windows 7? Somebody please answer me that question, because I have no idea. It was very slow, and it was somewhat difficult to export some of the media when I was doing some audio editing, which was very frustrating. But it wasn't too bad because I didn't end up using it as much. I would have Melissa send me audio files, and I just cut them down from there, which made my life a lot easier and wouldn't allow me for wasting time. Another challenge that I did have was on bad news days. So I would say that a lot of the Mondays that we had were bad news days. And what I mean by that is there isn't really a lot going on. The weekend just happened, so all of the events in the community or anything that's really big that happened usually happened and we talked about on Thursday or Friday. So coming on Bad News Mondays were difficult because there wasn't always much to talk about. There's always a lot of crime going on or people going to courts and things like that. There wasn't anything uplifting, which made it really difficult to find positive things to talk about on those days. But other than that, the only other issues I had with my researching of information would definitely be on community events, which I think isn't necessarily a fault on my part, but I would just say there was a lack of information when it came to some community events that I was looking for. Some of my skills I developed was learning how to use Adobe Audition, writing some professional emails, communicating with other people in a very formal manner, a little bit of social media marketing, which is where the Instagram Reels come in. One thing I didn't know about Melissa before I started my internship was that she loves her Instagram Reels. We shot so many of them, and they were so fun to do. And I asked her one time, and I was like, hey, why do you make so many of these? Like, I love watching them, and they're very entertaining, but is there like a reason behind it, or is it just you having fun at work? And she said it was great promotion for the station, and it would definitely help all of her friends kind of get an idea of what she's doing, and they'll share it with their friends, and they'll share it with their friends and their family, and it kind of helped bring more attention to the station and to our show specifically. So I kind of jumped in on that. I made a handful of Instagram Reels myself. I will say some of them are very good. You should check them out. Very proud of them. And it was great. I didn't even realize the impact that they had until I had my family friends talking to me. They're like, this is great. Or my friends talking to me, and they're like, I love watching your Instagram stories and your Instagram Reels every morning. I'm like, thanks guys. I'm just having so much fun in my internship. So that definitely was a big thing that I learned and that I will be taking with me in the future. A lot of quick thinking and creative thinking. There were times when we were scrambling to come up with a break or something to talk about, and Melissa and I will just start throwing things at each other like, what about this, what about this, what about this? Or we'll start talking about like the most random thing like TV shows that we watched growing up. And she's just like, yeah, we're going to talk about that in like 2 minutes. I'm like, okay. So we were very good at going with the flow, but you also have to be conscious of your time, which also time management comes into play. There is limited amount of time on our show, as in we'll have people on air from, let's say, it would be from like the 0 to the 6. So what I mean, the first 6 minutes of each 10-minute section would be us talking on air with somebody else or talking to each other or playing some news or something like that. And then at every 6, we would go to traffic, news, and weather. So we did have a 6-minute window each 10 minutes to talk about certain things. So you got very good at managing your time and kind of getting out everything that we need to get out, and also making sure that people weren't talking for too long or not talking enough and having to fill the space. Another thing with time management is having to get up really early. I had to get up a little bit earlier than I normally do for school, but one of the best things about that is that I got to see the sunrise almost every morning, which was definitely a nice perk to getting up so early. What did my internship solidify for my future? I definitely would say that I want to focus on radio broadcasting in college. I know that at UConn they do have their own radio station, so I'm so interested and I'm hoping to get into that as soon as possible. I also found out that I prefer working in the morning. It's something where just over time I really did enjoy it. It wasn't too difficult for me because I naturally get up early, but I like to knock everything out in the morning and not have to worry about going in later or anything like that. It was a great way to start my day. And I also like talking on morning talk shows rather than on a music station. Music stations and talk stations are completely different. I mean, one has music and one doesn't, but there's a lot more work, I would say, in a talk show because you have to fill in all of the time. You have to contact people and see if they're interested in coming on to your show and what are they going to talk about. And then you also have to create different segments so then people are engaged and they want to keep listening in. Whereas on a music station, you kind of just need time fillers just before another song plays. So it was a good challenge, and it was definitely good to see that I prefer to do something more with talking rather than with music. So thank you guys so much. Are there any questions? Mr. K.
I have a question. You're Melissa, right?
Yeah.
Alright. So that's a two-part question, one for Katie and one for Melissa. So did you, I guess for Melissa, did you expect to have your intern be on the air? Katie would email us every time she was going on the air.
Yeah.
That is true.
Did you expect her to
No.
be on, and what made you give her that airtime? And then for Katie, what did you learn the most about, because most of what you did here was podcast and sort of pre-recorded where you could edit out things that you needed to, about live radio, probably terrifying in the beginning. But like, what did you learn from Melissa that you could take in your career down the road?
I would definitely say a lot of the quick thinking, and you have to have a bit of a format. So every time I would go on air, I'd start formulating how do I want to intro what I'm about to start talking about. It's good to be very fluid and kind of, on radio you have to sound like you have everything already lined up all together. So if it was a last minute decision for me to go on air and start talking about something, I'd just think to myself, I'd take a second, I'm like, okay, here are the key points that I want to touch on. Let's make sure we hit all of those, and then if there's extra time, throw this in. So it definitely came with just practice, I would say. After going on air a few times, I kind of got the hang of it. So I would say that kind of helped me with that.
Why did I put her on? So I've had dozens of interns over the last decade and a half, and Katie's only the second intern I've let come on the air. And the reason is, and she's the most consistent I've had on the air, is because Katie showed up and she wanted to learn. She did research. She would show up with like 6 story ideas at 5:45 in the morning, and she would sit down and like open. I never asked her to bring her laptop. Never asked her to bring anything, and she just would come in prepared, wanted to do stuff, and she had a lot of knowledge. Like when I would bring up stories, the lifeguarding thing. We brought up that there's a lifeguarding shortage, for example, and Katie's like, oh, I work in the Y, and I know all this, and this, and I'm like, cool, you're coming on, and there was just because I also have to produce the show itself, like I run how the show happens or whatever. I don't have time for her to say no. It's like if you're gonna give me something, then I'm gonna use you, and I think once she realized that was kind of my personality, she went with it. So she gave me a lot of opportunities. I'd say you came on at least once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And so you were on quite a bit, way more than I've ever had anybody come on. So it was a no-brainer.
Cool.
Yeah, she's awesome. I'm sad. I'm sad you're a high school. I've never had a high school intern. I've only had college interns. This is my first one, and I was so sad that she has like a future and wants to go to UConn.
I'm sorry.
So I was like, sure you don't want to just
She wants to like go continue her life. That's fine.
She's gonna say 4 more years, then I'll be back. It's okay. Yeah, Lizzie.
What program did you use, and did you enjoy using it?
Like for editing?
No, for the actual manual, like radio board itself.
That I didn't
What
touch
was the
that.
program?
It's called Zeta.
Oh, okay. That's what we're
yeah.
getting. Okay.
It's kind of a nightmare, but yeah, Zeta.
Okay.
I was gonna say that was more Melissa and Chris that were working
Did you
on
have a
that.
cough button? Did you ever use the cough button?
No, so I used to have a cough button, but it's only me, so I control my board, so I can turn my mic on and off. And Katie was there for 2 of the weeks that I had no voice. I
Yes.
lost my voice at the Bruins.
Oh my
game,
gosh,
so
it
that
was so
that was a
funny.
disaster. So it was on and off, but yeah. But we do have the cough button, yes. I just don't use it.
What was your favorite segment on the radio show?
Like segment for me to go on and talk about, or like just a segment that we would have.
A segment for you to talk about.
Actually, it's so funny you asked that because I was actually pulling the audio before, and I will share it to everyone in a little bit. But on Cinco de Mayo, we had a one of the representatives from the Central Connecticut Coast YMCA come on to talk about Water Safety Month in the month of May, and we're in the middle of our interview. Like, she came in studio, we're all sitting there, we have our headphones on, doing the conversation, and it was a great topic. Like, I loved having her there. Her name was Alex. She came on, she talked about it, and it was just great to spread awareness about Water Safety Month and why it's important for kids to, be careful in the water. But all of a sudden, we start hearing this like random music coming out of nowhere, and a mariachi band just started playing and like was going around like the building just in circles, and they were playing, and it was so loud. So in the audio that I will share with you guys in a little bit, after I'm done, is in the middle of us broadcasting, like live on air, you could just start to hear this music, and we didn't realize it was that loud until we played the audio back, and I like opened the door. I'm like, Melissa, there's a band outside right now, like they're just playing. And she goes, of course, like why wouldn't there be? So after we finished with the segment, we threw on some pre-recorded news, and we went out and we were watching this band, and it was just the funniest thing. So I definitely say that was one of my favorite segments that we had the opportunity to do, not only because the band came out of nowhere, but because it also is a very serious topic that I feel like isn't as well addressed. Lizzie.
There's one part of this journey I'd like to bring up, the cake pops.
I have an obsession with the Starbucks Bumblebee cake pop.
Okay.
That's it.
That's your favorite one?
That's it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I guess this is more like a comment, but you're like the whole. I got like teary. I mean, you're talking. I'm probably crying now. It's so. I don't know what's going on, but because you're like the exact reason why we do this, to talk about like what you learned with Mr. K back like junior year, and like kind of sparked this passion. And then I know like we had conversations before you found your internship and did it, but like then to go after it and to do it, and then to show up and do it so well, and to like take advantage of every opportunity that was presented. And so I'm so proud of you. I also love that you sent us the emails when you were going to go on air, and how excited you were. So you wouldn't know this, when I'm walking down the hallway like with you on my phone. People would be like, are you listening? I'm like, Katie's on the radio. I'm like, Katie's on the radio. Okay.
That was so stressful though, because I had to text my mom, I had to send out that email, I had to send things on like 3 different platforms because everyone wanted to know when I was going on air. So my mom like had her own like group chat. She was like, all right, Katie just texted me, everyone tune in.
Sorry, I had a lot of people. I do think you should use the Advocate to like share one of the reels you made to try to like get some younger demo followers. But just really well done. I'm so glad you had such a great experience. And Melissa, thank you so much for giving her an opportunity, because without you, without like the community people that take our interns, it's not possible. So
Well,
we just
thank
really
you.
appreciate you.
Let me borrow her. I
Yeah.
can't. No, she's awesome. Thank you.
Great job, Katie.
Thank you.
So this is my internship. I'm Olivia Augustine, and in the fall I will be attending Merrimack College as an elementary education major. I interned at Orchard Hills Elementary School. The picture here, that is the last bulletin board that they did for the end of the year, and I entered in a first grade class, so she made it like as how they were going into second grade next year. My site supervisor was Mrs. Jones. I chose this site because Miss Jones is my former kindergarten teacher who now teaches first grade, and I thought it would be a great experience to work in the field of education with her because I have known her for a long time. The business of this site. As Orchard Hills Eagles, we care for each other, act responsibly, show respect, and never settle for less than our best. That's something that they say after the pledge every day in the morning, during morning announcements. And then learn from your mistakes. The students do make a lot of mistakes, and all they have to do is just learn from them and just keep trying their best. My expectations were to help the students and to work and learn from Mrs. Jones and to learn how to manage a classroom. I didn't expect for the students to make all this artwork for me. I went to the one special that I did go to was their art class, which they had twice a week in the morning, so I was able to go. And then they would, at lunch, they would also make some art. My responsibilities were to help the students and then observe Mrs. Jones and then keep the students on track of getting work done. Some of the students would ask me to read to them. I would play math games with them, they worked with building different shapes, and they worked with a lot of numbers and adding and counting by tens and ones. And then last Friday, their science teacher she had chicks, and they finally hatched, so all the students were so excited to go down and be able to see them. My accomplishments were understanding how the students spoke. It was a little hard to understand them because they are so little and they don't speak clearly. And then I was able to help them spell words, and then I got to know the students, so I was able to help them better, and I improved my interactions with younger students. My challenges were not always being able to understand what the students were saying, and not being able to help some of the students, because some of the students didn't want help while others wanted more help than others did. And then dealing with a misbehaving student. There was one student in the class that misbehaved a lot more than others, and it was just more difficult to help him because he didn't really want any help. My skills developed were definitely time management, with how there were no bells like there are in high school. So in elementary school you go off of the time. So they have different classes, but they're all in the classroom. And then they have recess and lunch and their specials, but there's no bells for them, so they just go off of the time that's in the class. And then patience, understanding the students, working with the students, and waiting for students to listen. Since it was more towards the end of the year, the students are more excited to get out of school, so they didn't really want to listen. And then problem solving, the students discussing their problems and figuring out solutions. One thing that Mrs. Jones does is she lets the students talk out their problems before getting involved, and that helps them with solving their problems. And this internship will help me in the future because it gives me an experience in the field of education, and it helps me to keep following this path, and it helped me develop a sense of maintaining a classroom. And then this is the class that I was with. And then my future plans are to attend Merrimack College in the fall and major in elementary education, and to continue working at Big Y this summer. Any questions?
I have a question. So obviously you plan to still pursue elementary education. Did you like a first grade class, or do you see yourself working with a different grade level?
At first I wanted to work with third grade, but I did like working with first grade a lot more than I thought I would.
What's the one thing that surprised you the most now looking at it from a teacher's point of view rather than a student's?
Probably just dealing with the students, because there was one student that did misbehave more than others, and she had a behavior chart for him, so every time he would do something good, he would like get a point towards it that would earn him playing time with a toy.
Is there one experience that you enjoyed the most? Because we work with kids, so there's always that one kid that's super funny. Did you ever have like one experience that was like, this is really what I want to do? They made you like open your eyes to first grade?
There were a few students that did. A lot of the students were really excited to see me at first, and then they just really enjoyed having me around. Like when I left before the bell every day, so they like always tried to get me to stay, and it was always like the same person that did it every day.